All right, folks, we're going to get started. Welcome to Mansfield High School's 2018 Poetry Out Loud competition. Congrats to all of our contestants competing today. I'm going to keep things moving along so we can get through everybody in these two periods. So we are going to start off with Jessica Zenk, who is reading The Arrow and the Song.
Wait, hold on.
Oh, yes.
I shot an arrow into the air. It fell to earth, I knew not where. For so swiftly it flew the sight, could not follow it in its flight. I breathed a song into the air. It fell to earth, I knew not where. For who has sight so keen and strong that it can follow the flight of song? Long, long afterwards in an oak, I found the arrow still unbroke. And the song from beginning to end, I found again in the heart of a friend.
That's all right. You can applaud. It's kind of hard not to applaud. All right. While the judges are working on their score, I'm just going to let you know who they are. We have Ellie Leveroni, who is a former English teacher from Mansfield High School. Sue Donovan, also a former teacher from Mansfield High School, who retired last year. Amy Lima, our new vice principal. Justin Tucker, English teacher at the middle school. And then Diane Celano, our librarian. So thank you to our judges. Right, and Kayla Bradley, who is doing Dead Butterfly, is going to be up next.
Yes, Kayla.
Dead Butterfly by Ellen Bass. For months, my daughter carried a dead monarch in a court mason jar. To and from school, in her backpack, to her only friend's house. At the dinner table, it sat like a guest alongside the pot roast. She took it to bed, propped by her pillow. Was it the year her brother was born? Was this her own too fragile baby that had lived so briefly in its glass world? Or the year she refused to go to her father's house? Was this the holding her breath girl she became there? This plump child in her rolled down socks. I sometimes wanted to haul back inside me and carry safe again. What was her fierce commitment? I never understood. We just live with that dead wing thing. It's part of her. It's part of us. Weightless in its heavy jar.
Ian Reddish is up next, and his poem is Lift Every Voice and Sing.
Lift every voice and sing, till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let a rejoicing rise, high as the listening skies, let it resound as loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of faith that our dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun until a new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat, have not our weary feet come to the place which our fathers have sighed? We have come our way with the tears that have been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out from our gloomy past till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, Thou who hast us by thy might, let us into the light. Keep us forever on the path we pray, lest we stray from the places our God we met thee. Lest our hearts, drunk from the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadowed beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land.
All right, Katie Haley is up next. And her poem is It Was Not Death, For I Stood Up.
Hello, my name is Katherine Haley, and today I'll be reciting It Was Not Death, For I Stood Up by Emily Dickinson. Thank you. It was not death, for I stood up, and all the dead lie down. It was not night, for all the bells put out their tongues for noon. It was not frost, for on my flesh I felt sirocco's crawl, nor fire, for just my marble feet could keep a chancel cool. And yet, it tasted like them all. The figures I have seen, set orderly for burial, reminded me of mine, as if my life were shaven and fitted to a frame, and could not breathe without a key. And 'twas like midnight some, when everything that ticked has stopped, and space stares all around, or grisly frost's first autumn morns repeal the beating ground. But most, like chaos, stopless, cool, without a chance or spar, or even a report of land to justify despair. Thank you.
All right, Daniel Poneman is up next, and his poem is Acquainted with the Night.
All right. So my poem is Acquainted with the Night by Robert Frost. I have been one acquainted with the night. I have walked out in rain and back in rain. I have outwalked the furthest city light. I've looked down the saddest city lane. I have passed by the watchman on his beat and dropped my eyes unwilling to explain. I've stood still and stopped the sound of feet when far away an interrupted cry came over houses from another street, but not to call me back or say goodbye. And further still, and at an earthly height, one luminary clock against the sky proclaimed the time was neither wrong nor right. I have been one acquainted with the night.
All right, next up we have Lindsey McDonald, and her poem is Quite Frankly.
Quite Frankly by Mark Halliday. They got old. They got old and died. But first, they composed plaintive depictions of how much they lost and how much cared about losing. Meantime, their hair got thin and more thin as their shoulders went slumpy. Okay, but not before the photo albums got arranged by them. Not just 2 or 3, but 18 photo albums. Yes, 18 eventually. 18 albums proving the beauty of them and not of someone else. Them and their relations and friends, incontrovertible, playing croquet on the Bloomington yard, floating on those comic inflatables at Dow Lake, giggling at the Dairy Queen, waltzing at the wedding, holding the baby beside the rental truck, leaning against the Hemingway statue at Pamplona, discussing the eternity of art at that Sardinian restaurant. Okay, sure, at the end of the day, they got old and died. Okay, sure, but quite frankly, how much does that matter in view of the 18 photo albums? Big ones 12 inches by 13 inches, each filled with such undeniable beauty.
Next up, we have Danny O'Brien. I know, I remember, but how can I help you?
I know, I remember, but how can I help you? The Northern Lights. I wouldn't have noticed them if the deer hadn't told me. A doe, her coat of pearls, her glowing hoofs, proud and inquisitive, eager for my appraisal. And I went out into the night with electrical steps, but with my head held also proud, to share the animal's fear and see what I had seen before. A sky flaring and spectral, greenish waves and ribbons, and the snow, under strange light, tossing in the pasture like a storming ocean caught by a flaring beacon. The deer stands away from me, not far, there among bare black apple trees, a presence I no longer feel. We are proud to be afraid, proud to share the silent magnetic storm that destroys the stars and flickers around our heads like the cold spiritual agonies of old. I remember other lights, but without the sense, other light storms, cold memories, discursive and philosophical in my mind's burden, and the deer remembers nothing. We move our feet, crunching bitter snow, while the storm crashes like God wars down the east. We shake the sparks from our eyes, quivering in our shocked fur. We search for each other in the apple thicket, a glimpse, an acknowledgement. It is enough, but never enough. We toss our heads and say goodbye, moving away on bitter, bitter snow.
Next up, Alyssia Jimenez, Across the Bay.
Across the Bay by Donald Davy. A queer thing about those waters. There are no birds there, or hardly any. I did not miss them. I do not remember missing them or thinking it uncanny. The beach, so-called, was a blinding splinter of limestone, a quarry outraged by hulls. We took pleasure in that. The emptiness, the hardness of the light, the silence, and the water's stillness. But this was the setting for one of our murderous scenes. This hurt and goes on hurting. The venomous, soft jelly, the undersides. We could stand the world if it were hard all over. Thank you.
Next up, Samantha Boer, and her poem is Lullaby in Fracktown.
This is Lullaby in Fracktown by Lillis Mellon Gignard. Child, when you're sad, put on your blue shoes. You know Mama loves you lollipops, and Daddy still has a job to lose. So put on your party hat, we'll play the kazoos louder and louder from the mountaintops. Child, when you're sad, put on your blue shoes. We'll dance the polka with pink kangaroos, with dolphin choirs singing flip-flop, flip-flop. Hey, Daddy still has a job to lose. Don't be afraid, close your eyes, snooze, 'cause today our suns have flared and dropped. Tomorrow, when you wake, put on your blue shoes. Eat a good breakfast, be good in school. Good boys go to college, goody gumdrops. So one day you'll too have a job to lose. Waste chucks clatter by as the gray bird coos. Flames pour forth when the faucet's unstopped. Child, when you're sad, put on your blue shoes. 'Cause Daddy still has a job to lose.
Next up, Lulu Kavicki, Ricardo.
Okay. Ricardo by Edna St. Vincent Millay. We are very tired, we are very merry. We've gone back and forth all night on the ferry. It was bare and bright and smelled like a stable, but we looked into a fire, we leaned across the table. We lay on a hilltop underneath the moon, and the whistles kept blowing and the dawn came soon. We are very tired, we are very merry. We had gone back and forth all night on the ferry. And you ate an apple, and I ate a pear, from a dozen of each we had bought somewhere. The sky went wane, and the wind came cold, and the sun rose dripping, a bucket full of gold. We are very tired, we are very merry. We had gone back and forth all night on the ferry. We hailed, "Good morrow, mother," to a shawl-covered head, and bought a morning paper which neither of us read. And she wept, "God bless you," for the apples and pears, and we gave her all our money but our subway fares. Thank you.
All right, next up, we have Tessa Lancaster, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening.
Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep.
All right, next up we have Amanda Holbrook, Cartoon Physics.
Cartoon Physics Part 1 by Nick Flynn. Children under, say, 10 shouldn't know that the universe is ever expanding, inexorably pushing into the vacuum, galaxies swallowed by galaxies, whole solar systems collapsing, all of it acted out in silence. At 10, we're still learning the rules of cartoon animation, that if a man draws a door on a rock, only he can pass through it. 10-year-olds should stick with burning houses, car wrecks, ships going down, earthbound, tangible disasters, arenas where they can be heroes. You can run back into a burning house. Sinking ships have lifeboats. The trucks will come with their ladders. If you jump, you will be saved. A child places her hand on the roof of a school bus and drives across a city of sand. She knows the exact spot it will skid, at which point the bridge will give, who will swim to safety, and who will be pulled under by sharks. She will learn that if a man runs off the edge of a cliff, he will not fall until he notices his mistake. Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Arturo Romero, The Truly Great.
The Truly Great by Stephen Spelder. I think continually of those who were truly great, who from the womb remembered the soul's history. Through corridors of light where the hours are suns, endless and singing, whose lovely ambition was that their lips, still touched with fire, should tell of the spirit, clothed from head to foot in song, and who hoarded from the spring branches the desires falling across their bodies like blossoms. What's important is never to forget the essential delight of blood drawn from ageless springs. Breaking through rocks in worlds before our earth. Never to deny its pleasure in the simple morning light, nor in its grave evening demand for love. never to allow traffic to smother, never to allow gradually traffic to smother with noise and fog the flowering of the spirit. Near the snow, near the sun, in the highest fields, see how these names are faded through waving grass and by the streamers of white cloud and the whispers of wind in the listening sky. Whispers of wind in the listening sky. The names of those who in their life fought for life, who by their hearts was the fire center, born of the sun, that they followed short ways from the sun, and it left in the air their vivid signature of honor.
Next up, we have Deirdre Burke, Nuit Blanche.
Nuit Blanche by Emily Lowell. I want no horns to rouse me up tonight, and trumpets make too clamorous a ring. To fit my mood, it is so weary white, I have no wish for doing anything. A music coaxed from humming strings would please, not plucked, but drawn in creeping cadences across a sunset wall where some marquise picks a pale rose amid strange silences. Ghostly and vaporous her gown sweeps by the twilight dusking wall. I hear her feet laying on the gravel, and a sigh, briefly permitted, touches the air like sleet. And it is dark, I hear her feet no more. A red moon leers beyond the lily tank, a drunken moon oogling a sycamore, running long fingers down its shining flank. A lurching moon, as nimble as a clown, cuddling the flowers and trees which burn like glass. Red, kissing lips, I feel you on my gown. Kiss me, red lips, and then pass, pass. Music, you are pitiless tonight, and I so old, so cold, so languorously white.
Danielle DeCenzo is up next, and her poem is America.
Although she feeds me bread of bitterness and sinks into my throat her tiger's tooth, stealing my breath of life, I will confess, I love this cultured hell that tests my youth. Her vigor flows like tides into my blood, giving me strength erect against her hate. Her bigness sweeps my being like a flood, yet as a rebel fronts a king in state, I stand within her walls with not a shred of terror, malice, not a word of jeer. Darkly I gaze into the days ahead and see her might and granite wonders there. Beneath the touch of time's unerring hand, like priceless treasures sinking in the sand.
And next up, we have Austin Rizzo Dee, and his poem is Apollo.
We pull off to a road shack in Massachusetts to watch men walk on the moon. We did the same for 3, 2, 1, blast off. We kept watching these men bounce in and out of craters. I want a Coke and a hamburger, because we're now watching the men walk on the moon, which is irrefutably not green, not cheese, not a shiny dime floating in a cold blue the way I'd thought. The road shack people don't notice we're a black family not from here, the way it mostly goes. This talking through static bounces in space boots tethered to cords, which is even stranger than we are.
Okay, next up we have Savi Rocchi, and her poem is Spanglish.
So I'm doing Spanish by Tato Laviera. Pues estoy creando Spanglish. By cultural systems, scientific lexicographical intertextual integrations. Two expressions, existentially wired. Two dominant languages, continentally abrazándose en coloquial combate en las aceras del suelo, Imperio Spanglish emerges. Control pandiaje sobre territorio bilingüe, las novelas mexicanas mixing with radio rock and roll, condimented cocina lore. Immigrant, migrant, nasal mispronouncements, baraja, chismeteos, social club, hip-hop, prieto, street, salsa, corner store, and mixturando, Spanish pop farandula. Standard English classrooms with computer technicalities. Spanglish is literally perfect. Spanglish is ethnically snobbish. Spanglish is carajoli inteligencia. What U.S. slang do you speak?
Okay, next up, Aditi Junagadh. Oh, and her poem, Semi-Splendid.
Hello, my name is Aditi Junagadh, and my poem is Semi-Splendid by Tracy K. Smith. You flinch. Something flickers, not fleeing your face. My heart hammers at the ceiling, telling my tongue to turn it down. Too late. The something climbs, leaps, is falling now across us like the prank of an icy, brainy lord. I choose the wrong word. I am wrong for not choosing merely to smile, to pull you towards me, and away from what you think of as that other me, who wanders lost among whom? The many? The rare? I wish you didn't care. I watch you watching her. Her very shadow is a rage that trashes the rooms of your eyes. Do you claim surprise at what she wants, the poor girl pelted with despair, who flits from grief to grief? Isn't it you who she seeks? And if you blame her, know that she blames you for choosing not her, but me. Love is never fair. But should we care? Thank you.
Okay, Lily Barnes is next, and her poem is Dead Butterfly.
Dead Butterfly by Ellen Bass. For months, my daughter carried a dead monarch in a quart mason jar, to and from school in her backpack to her only friend's house. At the dinner table, it sat like a guest alongside the pot roast. She took it to bed, propped by her pillow. Was it the year her brother was born? Was this her own too fragile baby that had lived so briefly in its glass world? Or the year she refused to go to her father's house? Was this the holding her breath girl she became there? This plump child in her rolled down socks I sometimes wanted to haul back inside me and carry safe again. What was her fierce commitment? I never understood. We just lived with the dead winged thing, as part of her, as part of us, weightless in its heavy jar.
Next up, Allie True, and her poem is Quite Frankly.
They got old. They got old and died. But first, they composed plangent depictions of how much they lost and how much cared about losing. Meantime, their hair got thin and more thin as their shoulders went slumpy. Okay, but not before the photo albums got arranged by them. Arranged with a niftiness. Not just 2 or 3, but 18 photo albums. Yes, 18, eventually. 18 albums, proving the beauty of them and no one else. Them and their relations and friends, incontrovertible. Playing croquet in that Bloomington yard, floating on those comic inflatables at Dow Lake, giggling at the Dairy Queen, waltzing at the wedding, building a Lego palace on the front porch, holding the baby beside the rental truck, leaning on the Hemingway statue at Pamplona, discussing the eternity of art in that Sardinian restaurant. Yes, and so, quite frankly, at the end of the day, they got old and died. Okay, sure, but quite frankly, how much does that matter in view of the 18 photo albums, big ones, 13 inches by 12 inches, each full of such undeniable beauty?
Okay, Emily Maynard is up next, and her poem, Earth, You Have Returned to Me.
Earth You Have Returned to Me by Elaine Ekwai. Can you imagine waking up every morning on a different planet, each with its own gravity? Slogging, wobbling, wavering, a tilt and out of sync with all that moves and doesn't. Through years of trial and mostly error did I study this unsteady way, changing pills, adjusting the dosage, never settling. A long time we have been separate, O Earth, but now you have returned to me.
Okay, we have our final contestant of the day, Mary Monticello. The rose did caper on her cheek.
Yeah. I don't know how to do this. Let's go like this. Okay. A Rose Did Caper on Her Cheek by Emily Dickinson. A rose did caper on her cheek. Her bodice rose and fell. Her pretty speech, like drunken men, did stagger pitiful. Her fingers fumbled at her work. Her needle would not go. What ailed so smart a little maid, it puzzled me to know. Till opposite I spied a cheek that bore another rose. Just opposite, another speech that like the drunkard goes. A vest that like her bodice danced to the immortal tune, till those two troubled little clocks ticked softly into one. Thank you.
So great job, all of the contestants. The judges need a little bit of time now to calculate scores, figure out who our winner is. Okay, we have our winner. So I'm going to read third place, second place, and our winner. And the winner does receive a gift card, which Ms. Carly, our English department head, is going to present. So in third place, Allie True. In second place, Alyssia Jimenez. And in first place, moving on to the district competition to represent Mansfield High School, is Lily Barnes.
Can I give a speech? Sure. All right. I'd just like to thank all my fans. I love you all. Kisses to you all. I'd like to thank my mom, my dad, Miss Kenny, she's the best. All of you guys, you're the best. All right, that's it.